people come.
Get it started.
Oh, that's me. Thought I turned everything off.
Did everybody have the agenda I emailed? Let me look. What did you? I emailed it with the supporting documents. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. And first up on there is the Rumpke Waste Management.
Madam Chair.
Give me just a second before we get started. That noise back there. Do we want to have him pause or?
Yeah, because it might be interfering with them.
Are you getting a lot of background noise over there, sir? Oh my gosh, my head feels better.
The only thing is the water leaks out of here, and I gotta keep it from like filtering all of
Okay. All right. We're gonna have to speak up and do our best then.
Your agenda? I don't have it.
I can't hear you.
I don't have your agenda.
I forwarded yesterday with the other supporting documents. Did nobody get it?
I got it.
I got it. Yeah.
I could forward it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Everybody else good? All right. All right, first up on the agenda today is the Rumpke Waste Management, and Ms. Dukestein will be telling us about that. That was up for renewal.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Zorb?
as a point of order, the special meeting notice that was posted to the public only listed the 2025 budget review. It did not list Rumpke, and it did not list the cleanup ordinance.
We had to add some things because of that.
The special notice that went out to the public did not include them. We can't talk about these things.
We could amend the agenda.
No, you can't. Not on a special meeting, you can't.
The special council meeting or the special budget and finance committee meeting?
A special meeting is a special meeting is a special meeting. And that the public has to know what the topic is so that
Absolutely.
they know whether they want to attend or not. So let's say somebody wanted to be here for the Rumpke Waste Management.
I
That's not-
understand what you're saying,
It's not on the public notice.
but the cleanup ordinance is part of a budget. So once you keep working on a budget, you're gonna have to keep updating the cleanup ordinance. So that's part of that. That's why we wanted to have the special meeting, so that we could review the questions of those things. So you have to put the cleanup ordinance one, for example, on there. I understand your point about the Rumpke Waste Management, but I believe we talked about that in council last week as well, because we knew it was going to be up for contract renewal.
I disagree with that. And it's not on the notice. So
let
it
me,
doesn't matter if I disagree or if you
No,
disagree.
you are
It's not on the
absolutely,
notice.
let me defer to the mayor. Okay. So we'll strike the Rumpke Waste Management from the ordinance, and we'll move into the cleanup ordinance and the 2025 budget review. We're going to only go over the questions that was emailed. We don't want to go over the whole slew of things over again.
Whatever was on the special, whatever went out.
The 2025 budget renewal, so, okay. Some of the questions didn't pertain to the 2025 budget, so we want to stay, like you said, on task and discuss only the things that we are addressing, and that is only the 2025 budget, not things from the 2024 budget or things not relevant to it.
Again, that's your perception. It's not my perception.
Well, the topic is 2025 budget.
Absolutely.
If you asking me where some was paid during the 2024 budget, that's not 2025. So I would have to go back. Now, if you're asking,
If the 2025 budget numbers are based on what was spent in 2024, then it's absolutely relevant.
we're discussing the 2025 budget and questions pertaining to 2025. Ms. Dukestein, are you ready?
Yeah, if you guys are ready. The 20, where do you lead? You tell me where you want to start. I have the questions up, I have the budget up.
Start with the first question and let's just go from there.
Okay. I'll ask Ms. Zorb, based on the questions that you have, did you have any specific questions further than what responses I gave or in-depth? I have some further explanations, like, for example, on the screen here, these two, you had asked about those. And when I reviewed them, so there was a $4,800 increase. And then the prior year, I'm sorry?
48,000.
I'm sorry, yeah, $48,000 increase from the prior year, and it was like roughly $1,800 worth of spendings. And so this is a contract line, and I agree. Once I looked at it, this one here, the 101-449-523-001 is the exact same line. And so when I talked to Ms. Anderson about what it was that made her project that, she said that there's just some contracts that we needed to fulfill. And she said that we did a lot of appropriations. Well, not a lot, but there were some spaces where we didn't have money budgeted for those things. And we wanted to make sure that they were encompassed in this 2025 budget. So she earmarked it for two different sections. I will say, you know, I just removed the second one, which was this one. If you look in the budget copy that I sent you last night, which is why I sent it again, and I kept the $48,000 increase. There are going to be some spaces where we have to pay for things that are going to come under contract that we're going to need a bucket for. So that's where that bucket is, under finance. This is finance. So I'll let you lead if you have any other specific questions off your list that you wanted some detail about. I'll answer whatever you need to address.
There were a lot of spaces where there was not really an answer given. It just said, this is the proposed amount for 2025.
The first
Excuse me,
one,
no
and we'll talk
estimates or
about it.
quotes. I'm sorry?
You can go to first one and we'll talk about it.
It's 101.449.5230001.
Yep, that's the one that I just addressed.
I thought you were talking about the one above it.
No, these two, the $48,000 increase, and then the 101-449-523-001. I deleted the 101, the one ending in 523-001. It was, both of them were for $50,000. In 2022, we had $120,000 spent out of that line item, nothing in 23, and nothing in 24. So wherever those charges went, they weren't put in that line item for 2024, which would set precedents for budgeting for 2025. So I removed it. And then there was $1,800 worth of spendings in line item ending 5230000, and it was raised to $48,000 for a total of $50,000. And I kept that because there are going to be some spaces where services are contracted underneath finance where we're going to need a line. So I removed one, kept the other. I know there's contracted services underneath finance. And I can show you where I removed that if you want that as well. So here it is right here. I highlighted it so you could see. And then the $50,000, the $1,800 spendings. The other line I removed.
Okay, then the next line, the 101.449.524210. If there's no employees in community development or community environment, why do we need $3,000 for vehicle fuel? Who would spend $3,000
So
fuel if we don't have an employee?
if we have we will have projected economic development expenses. And when we do that, there traditionally every single year that we have had economic development, we have also had expenses related to gas, those types of things. I looked at the contracts and the history of economic developers, and they do not include that in there. So that is why that line is needed. It's only $3,000. It's probably a little bit high. If you want me to cut it down to 1,500, I'm fine with that. But we will need something there because do need some anticipated economic development. It's actually part of something that's in the comprehensive plan.
But that
Madam
hasn't
Chair.
passed yet.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
That hasn't passed yet.
It has not passed, but we would want to do some economic development. And if the contracts traditionally and the precedent set for economic developers is that they do their gas and those kinds of, mileage expenses separately, we would want to make room for that.
Mr.
This is,
I'm
yes.
sorry, he had asked, Mr. Wilson, go ahead.
I was just wanted to know, you were saying that 3,000 was too high,
It's-
but I mean, is it feasible at the level it's at now?
It is feasible because it encompassed more than just gas. When I looked at the precedents of their contracts, it encompassed mileage, gas. There's some things that they would have to attend on behalf of our city that would need for us to pay for up front. And the economic development line, that is just to deal with their contract and their pay. And so if they were to attend economic, summits around the city or state on our behalf, we would pay for those. It encompassed more than gas. So I think fair amount for gas is probably like 1,500. So we built it up a little bit just to take care of those other charges and fees and memberships and things like that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
So just to be clear, you have it at $3,000 to cover them unexpected expenses in that area, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's the seen but not seen charges that we could possibly have.
Thank you.
I just, in the spirit of, I want to make sure that we're fiducially responsible. I get it. And we don't want to over weigh in on any line item. So there was another line item, for example, this one here is the 101, 500, 523, 102. And it dropped from 120 to 10,000 that Ms. Zorb had honed in on and asked. And so there's a lot of small explanations to things that you all may not see, and I want to bring clarity for you. So this is the Rumpke ask. And so there are two ways that this works. So we have expenses that we encounter from Rumpke, and I'll kind of explain how Rumpke works. Mm-hmm. So Rumpke is a charge that, as a city, we pay for each citizen's Rumpke fees. We then use Greater Cincinnati Waterworks as our bill collector. So you guys see it on your bill. I see it on my bill with the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks for collection. Because of how the state requires us to budget and to bring money in or receive money and then put money out, we have to create a line item for those things. So a line item that can only pay out. And then there's another line item that receives in. So we try to make sure that those balance. Technically, we can clean this up on a cleanup ordinance, this particular line, next year at the end of the year. But in an effort to try to reduce the cleanup, this is why there's some of the areas were budgeted higher than others. I was going to show you the sheet by sheet, and I can do it at the first of the year, at the first budget and finance meeting, sheet by sheet of what it looks like, what our charges look like to go out to what we pay to Rumpke, what we bring in from Cincinnati Waterworks, and we also have a fee that it looks like $29,000 every quarter for the fees to go to Cincinnati Waterworks for collecting our money. So I also did a feasibility study to try to decipher whether or not it was worth us doing it that way, and it is. So this particular line, we reduced it because you asked, but is it wise to reduce it? Probably not.
Right.
So how we will fix it if we reduce it, if you want to stay with that change, is we will fix it on the cleanup ordinance at the end of the year. But you don't want to get in the habit, if you know a projection is there, to continue to underestimate those lines. Cleanup ordinances are not ideal, but it's what we've done as a city to kind of fix these issues in our budget. And going forward, projectively, I would like to see us have a more clear budget. I think that's where we're trying to achieve, getting to a more clear budget. Some line items will set themselves, and we will see more accurate reporting in actuals in 2024, 2025. We've had a lot of turnover. I don't need to rehash the past. But what I'm hoping for is, as we go forward, those lines will set themselves, and more clearly you will see. Because I'm new, Janetta's new, we're not seeing that consistency that you want to see right now, but we will and hope to see that soon. Okay. So I wanted to use that as an example of something that, if you guys want to just wait a year and let it set itself, I'm okay with that. But it is right, if we were projecting a budget properly, to put a larger amount there so that we can pay the amount that we're required to pay out of that line, and then receive the money. And so it makes sense, like, to say, well, in our own home budgets, wherever you paid out something, if you're going to receive that reimbursement back, you receive it in the same space. But that's not how it works here. So that's why sometimes you don't see it, because where we receive the money and where we pay out the money is two different line items. So my intention is to kind of show you more of that as we go forward in 2025. So by the time we get to the end of the budget for 2025 and we're doing 2026 projections, there won't be as much, you'll have complete clarity and transparency in some of those spaces.
So without us increasing that line item budget, we're creating more work on the back end at the end of the next year, 2025, in order for that.
But I know that, like I said, we're new. So if we have to build that trust, I'm okay with that. But I wanted to be transparent with you about why it is that we've projected those things. You as a council body have the ability to make the decision. I'll adjust how you want to, but I'm telling you why it is and what we're hoping to move to. And so that so it's not so weighted even on you guys at the end of the year, each year. You know, cleanup ordinance, 2025 budget, the planning for the budget has to start a lot sooner. The cleanups ordinance should get a lot shorter, all of those things.
So what are council thoughts on this line item here? You guys want to adjust it, keep it the same? What are your thoughts?
My thought is it'll all wash out in the end anyhow.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Underwood.
I don't like cleanup ordinances, so I think that we should try to avoid the cleanup ordinance. I'm sorry, I know it sounds muffled.
No, you're fine.
I don't like cleanup ordinances. I think that we should try to avoid them when we can. So I think that we should possibly take that into consideration.
I'm in agreement too as well. I just wanted to hear everyone else's thoughts before I share my opinion.
Madam Chair.
I'll go after Mr. Wilson.
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
So, I mean, I truly believe that if it was adjusted to cover us on the back end, then I think we should leave it there, because the goal is to make sure that we're able to cover our expenses when needed.
It's really up to you all. I'm willing to walk through the year to prove the trust that these are the way that these things need to allocate. So if you decide, hey, we're not doing that, I'm okay with that too. But what I will be doing on a quarterly basis with Ms. Anderson is I will show you the cleanups throughout the year in time, so that next year it won't be so much confusion. But it's up to you. I don't really have. It would be easier if we proved it on the front end, but if you need that year of trust, I'm okay with that as well.
Ms. Gaston.
So I read this the other day, and so it has my name
here, and it says reduction. And I do remember requesting a reduction, but I don't remember it being 10,000. To me, that seems a little low.
No, Miss Anderson said 10,000 based on just what the projections are. And there are also, so I don't know if you guys remember we had the swimming pool on there and all those line items. We're also in the process of cleaning up some duplicates and combining those things. Those will also be in 2025. Very transparent. There's a whole legal process that has to be gone through to remove those lines. We can remove those lines, but we have to go through the process. So we're trying to show that, because with all these lines, I'm sure I remember sitting on council, it was super confusing. Not super confusing, but I would have to look and relook and look. So I'm trying to scale down those lines so that, you know, this comes out of this comes out of this. And so based on what you're saying, she reduced it to $10,000, but there will be some minimizing and kind of streamlining some of the line items so that you can clearly see. Like, there will be kind of like a description of whatever that line item holds, the kinds of charges that it holds, as much as it can as we go forward. It's going to take a little bit of time, but that's part of what we'll do on a quarterly basis to bring knowledge there. She brought it down as low as it could be, just trying to satiate and bring comfort, because we're not trying to bring confusion. We want to bring clarity. You have a decision to make about the budget, and we want to make sure you have as much information as you need to do that.
Are you, Chair? Yes. No, go ahead.
So the 120,000, did I miss where that number came from? Is that traditionally,
That was the estimate projected for.
That was the original estimate projected.
okay, and in the past, has it been around that amount, or?
Well, this is the Rumpke scenario.
Okay.
So this is kind of, it's not a new line item, but it is how we're going to use this line item forward, which is why those projections were put there.
Okay.
And so it would have been, but it will be more clear when I can show you the Rumpke stuff.
Okay.
And I wanted to show you the addendum to the contract that I made, making sure that, like I said, I did a whole just study trying to figure out is the amount of money that we are paying out, because before Ms. Iggy came, we were actually paying out, and the charges were falling on the general budget of the city for residents' garbage. So there was a lot of just negotiation to try to bring that amount up. And so I did another study because the garbage amount went up for us. And I made sure that I talked to the Rumpke people to make sure that what you all are being charged, or we as citizens are I'm being charged that as well, is matching up with the amount of money that we need back. But I will, in defense of those prior to me, it's really hard to see because the fees are so broken up. You have to look at what you're paying out to Rumpke. You have to look at what you're receiving from Greater Waterworks or Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. And you also have to look at the fees on both of those organizations and what the citizens are paying, and it kind of create all those totals and compare across the line just to make sure that we're getting our money back. And that's kind of how it happened. But going forward, we will continue to look at that every year. And so then also our contract was like going over 3 years. And so when you have a 3-year contract and those things are going up, it may not click, especially with so much turnover, to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to review that to make sure we're charging our customers the right amount. So how that works is this budget, back to this line item, going forward, this will be the line that will be used to make sure that those are paid out, and we want to have enough money. And so if that's overdrawn at the end of 2025, we don't even have to wait until the end of 2025 to reappropriate or to pass legislation. We will probably do it mid-year so we can get a better assessment of what that looks like. But on the front end, because we knew that that was a problem, we projected a little higher there so that it will not cause us to have to do so much paperwork, extra meetings, remembering legislation and all of that. Again, if you need that trust year, I'm here for it. Let's do it.
I say let's meet in the middle at 60.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, like you said, we could review again mid-year and see if we need the other half to go into that.
I'm just gonna make some notes for myself so I can remember
Go
to
right
make
ahead.
that change.
I was actually going to do the same.
Because what has to happen is because we're doing this budget and finance, I'm going to make those changes in the budget or whatever changes we talk about here, so that when we vote on it, you see that actual number on that line in the budget.
Is that appropriate for everyone's standard for now?
I don't think so. I think I'm not talking
No.
about the 60, I'm talking about the process. So the original, there's already been a budget we've already had a reading on.
But
You can't just slide we'll have to make changes to each line that's been changed.
That's fine. I mean, we can keep it at the 10 because that's where we already have it.
I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm saying
We've
the
modified
process-
things I'm sorry. We have modified things on council floor prior, and if we had to go through those individual changes, that's fine. I understand that.
That's my only point, is they have to be modified individually because
Yes.
there's already been the budget has had a reading. So it's already set in the public eye.
Okay.
So in order to change a line, we have to make we have to
Right.
amend it on the floor.
Right.
It's not, you can't just slide in another document.
I wasn't saying that.
No.
I was literally saying what you're saying. That's why I highlighted the changes in the budget when I deleted the line, because I needed to know where those were. So when we read the budget, we can make sure so that those changes, I didn't want to, and I sent it to you guys last night with all the highlights of the changes so that you could legislatively make those points. I'm going to make a list for you, but I wanted to get through the Budget and Finance Budget and Finance Committee meeting to denote all the changes, and then I'll get a list real quick so you guys can individually call those out.
Okay.
It was preemptive of what we were going to have to do in the council meeting. So definitely wasn't thinking that I could just slide it through. I
Yeah.
was just saying I can make those changes if you want, and I can incorporate those in the list of things that I highlighted. I'll highlight that one as well, put it on the list, so when you're reading the changes, that you can list that one.
Can we move on to the next line item?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
so, you said you were suggesting 60 on the 120?
Yeah, I was just trying to meet it
So-
halfway if we weren't
So,
comfortable with
I
the
just
full amount.
I just want some clear understanding. If we go 60 on that still means that we're gonna have to come back and review
matter.
it,
If you go
review
10.
it again.
If you attend,
I mean, if
you
you're
go
comfortable
60,
with the full-
if you go 60, you might as well go 10. It is what it is.
Hold
So-
on. What were you going to say, Madam Chair?
I said if I was only suggesting 60 because it was in the beginning, the 120 was too high. So I was just trying to meet in the middle halfway at 60. But with us not being able to talk about the contract and justify the 120, but if you guys are comfortable with that, I'm just trying to gain a sense of where council would want to be. And I just started off in the middle, so.
Madam
but if
Chair,
you-
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go
No,
ahead,
go ahead.
finish. What I will say is, if you do the 60, the first level of appropriations that we come for, we can maybe push it out a little further out. So, it is what it is, whichever.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
just want to be correct, ask question. So, but if we do the 120 instead of the 60, then what are we looking at? Ms. Rios?
We are looking at not seeing that on the cleanup ordinance for 2025.
Now, Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Wilson, you have the floor.
So that will, that will basically, we'll make that decision now, and we won't have to review it until the end of 2025?
Yeah, you'll see it probably July when we start reviewing the budget. You'll see those line items and the actuals coming out and being able to compare what we actually spend in 2025 versus what we will project in 26.
Okay, so that will be the first time that we would have had an actual projection of what was actually spent with Rumpke, because we don't have one from 23, right?
We have one. which is kind of how we derive the number, but we're also
Derived,
getting
which
ready.
number? Which
The,
number?
the line item,
120?
101, 500, 523, 102. But we've done multiple things. We've shrinked line items, broadened them so that they can hold more expenses, so that you understand. With all of the changes, what I would say is it is perfectly fine if you want to reduce that to $10,000. Just expect that to be on the cleanup ordinance. It is totally fine. I just wanted to explain to you what the process is and what you could look forward to earlier. And I know you guys are trying to make it easier for us to do the 20,000, but as I'm hearing you talk and wanting to see those amounts, it's with 60,000, it's really going to cause us to be back at a cleanup ordinance anyways. Which is fine. I mean, we're used to a cleanup ordinance.
Yes, Ms.
It'll get better with time.
As a point of clarification, so we're talking about, because I will confess, I zoned out because I didn't really care about the 10,000 versus 60,000. So,
I'm sorry,
So-
repeat that, what'd you just say?
it doesn't matter. So, we're talking about 101, 500, 523, 102, garbage collection. That's at 120,000. That's the garbage for the city, isn't it?
But it's still,
But you're talking about the contract.
But it-
And the contract is down in the waste collection, which is in Department 230, and that's $880,000.
But that-
So you keep going back and forth, but I don't think we're talking about the contract per se. We're
We-
talking about the city's garbage bill.
they're all wrapped up in one contract. And
We're
so
not allowed-
had we had the ability, which is fine, you're right, there's a special meeting, we couldn't talk about the contract. I would have been able to separate out the two and show you the differences and how the addendum was made. All of it is wrapped up together in one contract.
So I'm going to ask this question one more time. I think I asked it before. So the garbage for this building, the garbage for the fire department, the garbage for the police department, and the garbage for the public works, those buildings pay $120,000 a year for garbage.
Yes,
That's insane.
it is. But garbage collection, water collection.
But they don't even have dumpsters, do they?
Yeah, we have a dumpster here. They have dumpsters.
So
Public
it's,
Works has
what,
one.
3 dumpsters?
It's 3. I don't know how many dumpsters there are. I mean, if you want me to follow up with that, I can. But there are we added a dumpster here, and it's also how many times a week they come to relieve those dumpsters. Like, for example, just yesterday I had a citizen called, and they had a person that had been set out. Our Public Works Department, because their things were stretched all up and down the street, they went and cleaned up what was up and down the street and put those things in the dumpster. Some of the stuff, the more larger items, they put back in front of the house, and they said this morning that somebody came out and they were packing up their stuff. However, what I'm saying is we can't leave if it's an obstruction to traffic. We have to get those things.
Not my point whatsoever.
So my point to your point is that we have dumpsters, we have a large amount of trash collection, and that trash is expensive. And yes, that is an accurate cost. And I was trying to give you a relevant example so that you can see how little things come up to add up to why it is the amount that it is.
So I would like to make a suggestion.
Sure.
When the city goes and collects all that trash, I know we do the high weeds, why can't we do a trash lien on people's property the same way?
We
and
could-
help cover the cost of that garbage?
I don't think that's a bad idea in exploring that kind of thing, but right now, this is where we are with
I
the
understand,
card.
but
So,
looking
yeah.
forward, I think we need to do that.
I'll make a note of that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Nichols.
although I'm not opposed to that, but we do need to consider that sometimes people will dump in front of other people's homes.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that when we're assessing the right person.
Right.
Absolutely, because I sit on a no outlet street, and I've had people come pull up at the end of the street, drop things in front of my yard. So if someone comes and drops a mattress in front of my yard, I don't want to be charged for someone else's dumping.
Another thing that we've faced, just to kind of hone in on why it's so much, in the park over here, Plies Park, there have been people dump their dogs, like bodies, of animals, their cats. We have to get that, that gets charged to this line as well. Public Works picks it up, but we can't just put them in the trash at Rumpke. We have to dispose of it a different way.
So to be fair, it's not just keep driving up, picking up dumpsters.
Right.
It's things that impede the public safety,
Yep.
health, and risk factors that.
Yep.
Madam
have
Chair,
to
and I
be-
have one more question.
Yes,
Do-
Ms.
or
Nichols,
Ms.
Mayor
Dukestein,
Nichols.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, they assess the refrigeration. That's an additional
Yep,
charge
it
because
is.
they don't take that anymore.
Yep, that is true. And so, again, I'm new, but as mayor saying those things, like, it jogs my memory of all the things that I read in the contract. It's hard to bring all that stuff forward to kind of explain what that charge encompasses, but that's why that charge is so high.
Yep.
And it is a valid charge, unfortunately.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm used to be Madam Chair.
So, it just, so understand, it just for clarification, this charge is literally our bill for the entire city,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't see a problem with it being where it's at.
So we're going to just adjust it to the full amount.
Yes.
Seems feasible, then.
Yes. I mean, what's the sense of
Having to come
handicap
back.
in our city? If something happens, we don't have enough money to pay for something to be removed because we decided to shrink it down. When we can actually put it at the level that secures the city the option to be able to get the things done. I'm pretty sure if that bill don't come out like that, we don't have to pay it, but at least we have the cushion that we need to cover ourselves if something happens. That's what it sounds like to me.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Gaston?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. I agree with what Mr. Wilson is saying, but if the lowest we can bring it down to is 10,000, where did the 10,000 come from?
She just gave us a number that was estimated. It wasn't, she had to put a number in there, and that was the lowest amount that she could put in that line item to just make sure we have something in the line item.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dukestein?
It's kind of like if you are not going to set it at what it should be, just any number in there, and then it becomes negative, and then we deal with it at the cleanup ordinance.
Okay.
Because the number that was in there, it may not make sense, but the number that was in there was pretty in
projected,
tandem
yeah.
with what we needed. So it's,
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wilson?
I'm just sure, like, bottom line, I think it should just be set at what it needs to be. That's what you guys projected. It's a reason why you guys projected it, and I don't want to go against that because of the simple fact that if I go against that and then something happened and they have projected it out, we could have handled this right then and there instead of having to go back and fix a problem that never had to exist.
that is your, whatever you guys decide.
That's just how I
think-
see it. I just don't see it as, it makes no sense to create a problem that don't have to exist.
I think once we're able to talk about the waste management contract, it would all make sense and line up together. So, all right.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dukestein?
I did send you all the monthly debits and expenses and so that you can look at it. You can see on there where it says Greater Cincinnati Waterworks, $29,000 fee. You can see the Rumpke fees on the monthly breakout. It's just that line item and everything that came out of that. So you can do the math yourselves as well. I'm not saying you have to, but if you wanted to, the paperwork is there for you.
Okay. So we are all in alignment of the 120 to avoid.
There was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to move on, but you still got one more statement. That's fine.
Not about that.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Let's move on to the next line.
So we changing this to 60, keeping it at 10, or?
120.
120.
120.
120. We're giving you the 120.
Okay. There was one that Ms. Zorb addressed that I wanted to hone in on, because I know that the description said given to her was a bit brief. And then when I had an opportunity to dig into it a little bit more, Jeanette and I attacked these separately, like ones she looked at, ones I looked at. Then I went behind and checked into a little bit more diligently the others. So this is the amount for the grass, weed, and tree remediation for Public Works. And so there was a question as to why is this a duplicate? And initially I'm like, yeah, you're right, that is a duplicate. So then I talked to her. Sometimes you don't understand why there's duplicates until you talk to people. We have grass, weed, and tree remediation that falls outside of what Public Works takes care of, that are specific to the city, that we need to have charges for. And so there are two ways to handle it. You can up the ante and put all the charges. So there's this requirement by state. Departments should not be handling things that should come from the general fund. Mm-hmm. So you'll see like expenses, like the utilities pulled out. Those should be not under departments. Some expenses should be under departments that are utilities. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you have a duplicate. There's a grass, weed, tree remediation that is specific, that should be coming out of the general fund. And then there is grass, weed, tree remediation that should fall specifically under Public Works. So you see the one that's in general fund is significantly lower, but that's why those two are there, and then there is a duplicate. If you wanted me to, this is easy enough. I can name it something else just so you can help identify why we have one versus one. I can offer an explanation, but I definitely can see how that would be questioned, and I wanted to make sure that I provided a answer for that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Alexander.
I like the idea of having a different name.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because as councils may change, that question will come up again.
And that way it clarifies which fund is which.
We won't do that this year on this budget, if you will allow me to just offer the explanation. And then next year, when we are creating more of a template, we can do that. Plus, I need to make sure that changing the name doesn't require any state things that we have to take care of.
Okay.
Oh, and then there was this one. Oh, we already talked about the economic development. I wanted to talk about this one, if you don't mind. This is the 101-102-521-210. This is the medical insurance. So in the modifications, in the updates of the budget, fire department, Joe Placky's new as well. Chief Placky's new as well, and he was getting his budget together. And his first version of his budget, he did not have an amount there. When we dug into it, we found out via the contract and that part-timers do actually pay Social Security. And so you saw some numbers change in this line item and all underneath, because underneath this line item are different charges. And so that's why you saw the changes here. But we did the right thing. Like, you want to work through a budget with integrity and ethically. Moving these, the amounts should represent the actual projections and what we spent in 2024. And so Social Security is blank because it was blank, but now has been changed to the $33,702 because part-time firefighters do pay Social Security, but government workers typically don't. But for some reason, part-time firefighters do. We're not sure why, but that is that. And then the medical insurance they don't have any medical insurance because they're part-time. So that's why you see the updates. As he's learning, we're learning, making sure things are falling in the right place. So you see the changes there, little small changes like that.
So is the medical insurance actuals, was that moved somewhere else? And
When we looked into the medical insurance actuals, it should have been charged in a different space, and it was moved somewhere else, and that's on the cleanup ordinance.
Okay. Kind of along those lines, can we talk about the OPERS?
Yep.
That is in the miscellaneous.
Yep.
So again, miscellaneous, there's no salaries there. Who are those OPERS for?
So that's a good question. It's a good observation. OPERS is, we pay OPERS regardless of, so we have an employer portion that we have to pay. And that's what that represents. So it doesn't matter if
Wouldn't
they
it be
pay
in
into
the
it.
same line wherever that, like, let's say it's your OPERS.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't that be in the administration instead of in miscellaneous? That's my point. It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be in miscellaneous. It should be wherever the employee's salary is.
It has to be separated from the portion that the other portion that we paid out. So that's the way that it has been represented in the previous budget from 2023. So that's how we represented it in 24. If you like to see that change to bring more clarity, that's what these conversations about. We can make that change for 2025. This year,
I mean,
because
I'm looking right up at finance, and there's a line for OPERS in finance. There's a line for OPERS under every department.
yes, but those are OPERS for full-time employees where we pay on their behalf, and then we take it out of their check. That's that. This is the way that we pay it. This is the way that we receive it. Then there is just our employee portion that has nothing to do with what amounts they're paying in their employment. It's just an amount that we as an employer have to pay. And fees and everything else that are listed in that. It's that way you represent the exchange and the contract. Contract fees, processing fees, our portion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Nichols.
Ms. Dukes, for clarity, are you saying that what's listed under each individual, for instance, under police, the amount that's represented there is the portion that the employee pays? And under the miscellaneous is the 14%
Yes.
that the city pays?
Yes. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. That is what I'm saying.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Nichols.
I think I could be wrong. The consensus is they want to see the city's portion under there as well, under each individual.
Department.
Yes.
Well, the problem with that and the reason why you would have miscellaneous is because the city's portion is also encompasses fees for processing. So how would you break out fees? You want us to divide it evenly across each department when some departments are very heavy on OPERS, whereas others are not? So like with just the firefighters, they can opt to pay OPERS, but they have their own, the part-time can use to pay into, they can actually, there's OPERS and then there's Social Security. And then you have OP&F as well. So there's all these different buckets as to which it's implied or designated to each employee based on their status, their seniority.
Right.
And so those fees are built overall. That's a fee that the city has capped in the general fund. So you want to see that underneath each one of those departments because it should be against the general fund.
No, I think it's just that, but.
Madam
Go ahead,
Chair,
Ms. Ellis.
so just for clarity, the one that is listed under miscellaneous are expenses that are just going out, that encompasses fees and things like that, not the things that we, that, I was about to say the patient, I'm at work, that the employees, those are just expenses, things that are going out. It's separate from the other
is.
bucket.
So that's
that we
why you
pay it
have
then.
it listed in the departments, because that's relative to the employees in the department.
And the
This
other
is
is
an overarching, so this is a way to kind of draw it out so that you actually do see it. So
Separate.
So yes, so sometimes we're asking not to put things together so that you can see it. Then other times we're asking, put it together and I'll list out what's underneath that umbrella. This is a time where
We don't need it.
Okay,
we want you to see what other charges are there. If you want to see that different going forward, I'm fine. I just want to make sure you know why it is that we separated it.
That explanation helps me to know that
Yeah.
that is those are fees going out. That's like a separate category than the ones that we see under the departments.
That's why.
I mean, if you want to build it back in, we can, but it will be less visibility for you.
Yeah, I like to see it separate, but I'm glad that Ms. Zorb asked for that question, because that does give me clarity as to what that miscellaneous is.
I think keeping it separate gives it transparency, that what everyone is asking for, so that it's clear understanding separate. All right, are we done with that line item? Any other more thoughts, questions on it? All right, Ms. Dukesting, let's move on to the next line item. Where were we? Jesus.
Land and improvement, 150,000. That's where we are.
Um,
101-799-525-100.
100. Yeah, okay, here we go. I remember in our 12-9 meeting, there was something that Ms. Anderson listed that was in there, and it was asked to be reduced to the 140. I think it was something that was repeated in Public Works. And so I can't remember who or how, but I just noted it on my copy. So I reduced that to 140,000. But this is also again, those things that we need to make improvements for, like this building. This building has some needs outside of what has been done. We're working towards getting a new roof. That work will start soon. But this is where that bucket will come from. The 1,500 has some needs. I know ARPA funds have been encumbered to that, but this is just for these spaces, like the buildings that we own, the things that we need to take care of that aren't budgeted for, that comes out of here.
So that sounds more to me like capital improvement, not land improvement.
Well,
I didn't choose the name, but if you want to change the name, I'm fine with that. Again, I have to make sure that I'm following the process that I need to follow.
Yeah, I don't know that we can just change names
Yeah,
arbitrarily.
which is why I marked that one. But the same with this one. If you want me to change the name, I can look into what it takes to change the name. But that's what that's earmarked for.
Madam Chair.
yes, Mr. Wilson.
So the name of it doesn't really matter, whether it's land or capital or whatnot. The purpose of it is what's the concern. And again, I'm gonna say this like I said before about the 120. There's no need to causing a problem that we don't have to have. I'm pretty sure that if we wanted to take it from the what was projected, that we'll have to review to lift it up if we need anything to go into that funding. So again, I would suggest that we give them what they need in that area, because we do have buildings and other things are going on here in the city that needs to be addressed. And if we don't have the proper funding for them to address them issues, we're going to have another issue, and that's our units being dilapidated. That's going to cost us to have to spend more money. So all I'm saying is that if the purpose of that line item is to ensure that the city has the funds it would need to address the issues that will come awry, we need to give them what they need to make sure that they have the weapons that the tools that they,
Madam Chair.
to be successful.
Yes, Ms. Zorb.
So I disagree with the statement that the names don't matter. The names absolutely matter, because that's how we pay the bills. the other point is that if the city goes and wants to spend $150,000, they have to come back to council no matter what.
That's true.
They can't do that without our approval. They have to come back to us.
So
So
have
that
to
was
approve
if,
it
that's
again.
agreed. So that's the other thing I was gonna say. We gotta come back, anything over 75,000, we will have to come back. And, I mean, I have been notifying Ms. Chichester and will continue to notify Ms. Chichester, even if it's 30,000 or whatever. I mean, I'm not asking for approval of things that we definitely need according to the charter, but I am just, it will be a constant feed of information, just so you know.
Madam Chair.
yes, Mr. Wilson.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Wouldn't this be asking us now, like the information that you're giving us? You know, what I'm saying, is this in the budget or is it being added to the budget?
Anything over $75,000, it's in our charter that we have to come back to council.
Okay,
And
but my question is,
we're budgeting for this. It's a yes and a no. You're right. If it's in the budget, it can be spent against those things specifically. This is a bucket umbrella of things. There is no one thing identified in there. So for the sake of Budget and Finance Committee and making sure that you all have the knowledge, I don't mind making sure you know when we're exhausting this fund, if it's over the amount that's on the charter. But I will say, a budget does approve the spendings that is in it.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
And that's just what I'm trying to address with, my comments, is just that, this is the budget. They're presenting us with, hey, this ideal of having this line item at this level to be able to cover, expenses that the city may encumber. And that's all I'm saying. So right now they will be asking us, the council, is it okay to have that line item at that level, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Short answer, yes.
Madam Chair.
This is for these meetings, the purpose of this meeting is for the budget to show us what the plan is for 2025. This is for us to discuss and ask questions about that budget like we're doing now, and to either say no or to ask, can we do this? Can we have we're looking for estimates and quotes before we provide 150,000 to that. But we're planning to put the money in this bucket for this expense to be used at a later time.
Right.
So it's not guaranteed that it's going to be that expense, because it could be higher, it could be lower, depending on what we come back with after we spend. It's like your Duke bill. You expect it to be like a certain amount, but sometimes depending on the weather, it's a little higher or it's a little lower, depending. So, I'm sorry, somebody said, Madam
I did.
President. Yes, Ms. Zorb.
So without having any kind of quotes or estimates, council is basically approving a blank check for $150,000. That's
It's-
what that amounts to.
It's not approving a blank check. What we're saying,
It is.
what we're saying is for the land and property improvement, or land and land improvement, however it's written, we know there are certain things that we're gonna have a cost no matter what. We know there's gonna be a cost for the roof no matter what. We need to get estimates and quotes. And we're giving the city permission to get those estimates and get their quotes. We have to trust that our city, we're being financially responsible. We're not going with the highest bidder or the first bidder. We're all intelligent people. We all understand how things work. We got to stop putting out a narrative that we're giving them a blank check to do whatever. We're giving them the go-ahead to go ahead and make the repairs that our city needs and make the adjustments that we need. And if we don't, we're going to be stalled out, hence why we're sitting here until things are actually getting taken care of. So I'm okay with approving that amount for them to move forward. We can't move forward if we continue to hold really tight to things. We have to loosen up a little bit and gain. They're trying to gain a little trust from us. We have to give them a little trust from us. So it's like that. You give 50-50. You give me a little, I'll give you a little, until we start to trust and understand and respect each other. We can't hold someone accountable for someone else's mistakes. What we can do is make sure we are watching to make sure we don't repeat those same mistakes.
Madam Chair.
One thing I will say is I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can take Vic first. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude.
Mr. Wilson.
So, just plain out, at the end of the day, the goal of the budget was created to give us an understanding of what it is that each department, expenses that they have, what's going on, and for us to come together and figure out if this fits in a substantial portion of our finances that the city has. So again, correct. I'm just making sure that my understanding of this budget is for, the city to come to us and tell us, like, hey, these are what our department's needs is. This is what we estimated it to be to come out, and we're asking y'all approval for us to manage this coming out of this, out of the city's funds in this manner. Am I correct? So if that's the case, then when these line items come along, like this line item here again, this line item was created to give the city the necessary tools to fix the problems that come awry. Now, I'm pretty sure that if they exceed whatever limits, then they got to come to council. But I'm just saying, I just feel comfortable with making sure that the city has what they need to cover the expenses that they feel has to be addressed right away. And that's where I'm at with this. So again, I will move, to say that the 150 is reasonable enough for the city to move forward.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dukesty.
So I do think accountability is important, and there's one way that you as council members can continue to look for that accountability, and that's in the monthly reporting. There will be debits and deposits that you'll see on the monthly reports. But I would also say that, those blind areas are built in every department's budget. I know that it feels uncomfortable when you're trying to be in good stewardship and vote, but you have to realize, police has a bucket where they're drawing resources to get their things fixed. Those areas of, proposed budgeting exist in every department. But in terms of administration, what we're doing, there's a direct level of accountability in those monthly reports. So there are other ways to be looking, making sure, checking, make sure that those spendings are going in the direction that you had hoped for. So I hope that statement brings both a vision and how you can look at it and some level of accountability to those areas where you may or may not have concerns. And I just want to switch the note just for a little bit because we did not talk about this, but it is important. It says, why is the city making COBRA payments for $15,000? When I looked into that, that was a typo. It's $1,500, and that again is the employer portion. And then there was another one here, the 230. It says it's being reimbursed. Then why is it increased budgeting spending? So again, this is one of those ones where we pay out things, this line is completely created for things that we have to pay but will be reimbursed. When we don't budget enough, that line is left negative, even though we have another account that is accounting for the reimbursement to the same amount. So we have to make sure that when we're budgeting forward, that we are accounting for all the expenses that we're going to have that fall underneath there. And then I wanted to address this because there was a question to make sure that all department heads have access to the line items that they manage. So there has been some just change of hands. One person said do it this way, one person said do it that way. And so we've had some things when we looked, it's like, why is park benches and garbage? Well, that's the line. It doesn't make sense to put garbage and park benches in the same line, but it does if you're using that line to pay out anything that we need to pay, but we're going to be reimbursed. It just depends on how you define that line item. So we're doing some cleaning up of that. And we found that there were some expenses in certain buckets that could have been better placed. I won't say wrongly placed, but better placed. And so that's why we're having these asks. Again, that will come with time and continuity and having a set of standards of why it is that we charge the way we charge and what we charge. Again, don't misread what I'm saying. I'm not saying people did things wrong. I'm saying it just depends on how you decide, what you decide that line item represents and how it feels to you. And when you come in and there's nobody to train you on what the previous thought process was, you lose continuity, and then people may charge differently than what you have perceived. And so sometimes it's a matter of looking into where the precedence has been and what we've done in the past. And then other times, even though precedence has been set, we need to change it to be more fitting to what our future looks like. So when you see those type of expenses, like expenditures, that's why it has gone up, because we are making sure that all of the expenses that we had in the past can be held in that line item. And then again, the COBRA payment, I wanted to make sure that you knew that that was a typo and that it was reduced to $1,500 and not $15,000. When you start looking at these numbers and pages and numbers all day, your eyeballs get crossed.
Absolutely understand that.
So in the spirit of moving forward, is there anything else that needs to be addressed? And like I said, I did have earmarked the 2 buckets where we talked about having a more appropriate name for those things there.
That were something that we did not.
So is that $1,500, that's that Cobra?
Mm-hmm.
That's not yellow on here, so we wouldn't, and it's on the most recent one that you sent out. It's not.
I think
changed to
Janetta changed it
1,500.
before me. I have to look and see at the version. I didn't highlight that one yellow, but I did.
The version that you sent to us yesterday still has 15,000,
Okay, I will change that. Thank you.
and it's not yellow.
I'm not sure why you wanted the XPAX contract, but I did send it to you.
Again, because it's based on this year's budgeting.
If you could see, it's super old, and then what they've done is just renewed. We'll probably be looking at it again.
It wasn't in the attachment, though. You didn't send it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
I think I sent it.
No, I thought I did. Okay. I don't know, sometimes. I mean, it's on the list of things that we want to talk about, so if you was want to pull it up, it is what it is.
Can we talk about the overall budget now?
Hold on. Does anyone else have any questions that were not answered or?
When you say overall budget, you mean this stuff down here, or you mean on this budget on the last sheet? The levies and the balance and the general fund stuff?
It's the combination of those two.
Okay, well, let me make sure we address all the line items before we move down to the budget. Everybody clear on every line item on the budget, and have any other questions that were not answered before we move? Okay. All right, I do. Let me make sure. Did we cover the 101, 102, 52101?
You back on this one?
Is at the top, the second, like
Here? Oh, here?
01.
Oh, one.
Yeah, did we cover that? I didn't make notes on it, so I was wondering, making sure we didn't.
The 201?
Yes.
Okay, this correction version, this amount should be 0, because it did not get moved or deleted. Okay, so there was, you gotta remember that everybody submitted their own budget, and some of the budget submissions, the lines were off. And when we looked and realigned, this one was off. And so it just was, it's supposed to be 0, it should be 0, it should have always been 0, it didn't get deleted, there are no actuals there. In the software, there's no actuals.
Okay, that's all. I just want to make sure each question was addressed before we move forward. All righty.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Dustin.
so just before we get into this, this has probably been the biggest challenge at trying to translate to you all in a way that, without looking at the actual software, looking at all the ways that we gather this information, this is challenging information to bring forward because, like, for example, and I'll go back to Ms. Zorb's sheet at the bottom here. She says Rita and property. Rita encompasses multiple things. Property, Rita does income tax, and then there's property tax. Property tax is assessed by Hamilton County. Rita is assessed by, it's a agency that we use to do our taxes, and then there's levy monies, and then there's grants. And then she says future grants and toll lot revenue. It's just impossible. We haven't even gotten all the revenue to date. And so the toll lot is setting itself this year because we didn't have that last year. So we can only very roughly estimate. And I'm new. I don't feel comfortable roughly estimating. You have to give time for it to set itself. And then, just reaching out to people that hold my same position, that was the advice given, that you let it give it a year, that it sets itself. And then grants, there are grants that we're planning to apply for, but sometimes grants come up in the middle of the year that we're eligible for. People call, we've had even the senator's office call and say, hey, you guys would be great for this grant. We don't know that, we can't anticipate that, so what we did do is project it based on the grants that we received last year. And then there's, with Rita, there's two dumps. There's dump in July, and then there's a dump in the end of December, which we actually haven't received yet. Typically, when I look back at the deposit, we receive it like the 30th or the 31st. And I can remember being on council when we estimated Rita, and it came in significantly lower than where we had estimated. So there is an estimation here. It's somewhere in the middle of where it was and where we had hoped for, because I don't want to overestimate. And maybe when I am here with longevity and I can see the trends, I can better assess a better projection. But I would never want to overestimate. And then we are thinking that that's what we have to spend from, because that's why these numbers are important, because we're looking at how much we budgeted, proposed for 2025 against the actual revenue that we have coming in. And we're asking ourselves, can we afford this budget? Do we need to scale back in some spaces? So overestimating in a bucket, huge bucket like income, would be a huge error on my part, and I'm not willing to do that. I don't want to do that. But the levy monies are pretty solid, but we have to remember that the levy, specifically the fire levy, is up for renewal, and we've got some bridges to mend, some to make sure that our levy is passed and the resources are used appropriately. So when you're looking at those numbers and you're looking at them on the back sheet of this HC payments and the beginning balances, and hers are pretty much based on actuals. Ms. Azorb challenged me to present what was, and I'm telling you how I got those numbers based on our tax, 2025 tax, which tracks our revenue. And then there are spaces where we have some revenue coming in that we can't account for, example, like the toll lot. So there you have it. You can
Madam
shoot
Chair.
with your questions.
Yes, Ms. Ort?
So are you basically saying that where you, in the email, where I was asking for revenue, the RETA and property tax, that 3.5 million is really just RETA. That's not the property tax. Is that valid?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the property tax, we pretty much know what that's going to be, and that's what's in that.
I built probably like
I mean,
a little small cut.
Sanderson has the property
Yeah.
tax in there.
Yep.
So it's basically 424,000 for property tax.
Yep, and it's also on the tax, the 2025 tax budget that we approved back in August, if you were remembering that document.
So, Madam Chair, may I continue?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Ort.
So just to kind of set the stage, I want to run down from the budget all of the things that are paid for from general fund. Is that
Sorry, repeat yourself.
from the budget that you submitted to us? I want to run down all the items that are going to be funded from the general fund.
Wait,
Is that fair? This is an overall kind of scoping kind of scenario here.
don't know, we actually have time allotted for that?
We have to, because that's how we're going to
Well-
find out if we have a balanced budget.
Absolutely, understanding your question and your concerns. At the council meeting, we said everyone submit the questions, and we will review the questions today on today's
I'm
budget.
just doing a confirmation. The longer we talk about this, the more time it's taken up, and I could just run through it.
But it's not just.
I could just
Let-
get to the end of my story if you want me to do that. The way I see it is we've over budgeted, and we don't have enough revenue coming in. So that's why I want to confirm, maybe I made a mistake.
No, that's fine. That's
Can I
the
please
bottom
go
line.
through this?
The bottom line answer, your question is, your ask is, we're over budgeting and it doesn't look like we have enough revenue coming in.
Exactly.
But we
So I
want-
want to confirm
long story
that I
short-
made a mistake.
Okay, so,
Madam Chair.
yes, Mr. Wilson.
So if we if that was the case, then how didn't you catch that earlier? Aren't you on a committee?
You've asked me this several times. Yes, you're on the same committee.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out how you didn't catch that earlier. Like, listen, I'm with you.
Hold on.
I
Mr.
want to
Wilson,
understand,
Mr.
but
Ms.
I'm
Zorb,
not-
Mr.
How many
Wilson.
times have I asked
Ms.
for the revenue
Zorb,
and I
Mr.
have
Wilson.
not gotten it? This is the
Well,
first time
this
I've
is not
gotten the
helpful.
revenue.
Well, you got
Let's
the
take a
revenue-
pause
I'm
for a
sorry.
second.
Miss,
Ms. Dukestein,
yes.
her question was, we're over budgeting. We don't have enough revenue coming in. Is that correct?
No, not exactly. So first,
So can I
the
please just
revenue-
go down and, I wanted.
Can we let her answer? You cut her off before she can answer your question.
So first, the 2025 tax budget requires that we report revenues. So there are revenues, which is why I went into that in the beginning, that we cannot account for in the numbers given. So that we will have a significant amount of revenue over and above what is there. I cannot estimate something that is its first year in setting itself. And then income, if we're solely basing it on that from Rita, I was very modest when it comes for that. Then there is the ARPA funds that we have to make sure. So some of those things come up in general fund expenses, but we will be using ARPA funds in 2025 to cover those things. For example, very small, but reality. There is we budgeted for in the police department, which will be covered by ARPA funds, a sign-on bonus for police officers. That's in the budget, but that actually $26,000 of that came from ARPA that is not represented in any of that. That's a one-time expense. It has a time limit at which we will be giving that money out. We will exhaust those resources probably right here at the first of the year, and that's it. So you have those outliers that kind of throw it off. But if you look at the beginning balance of all funds and then total remaining December 31st, we still have $7 million in the bank. Well, 6.9. And then some of those expenses will not be reoccurring past 2025, and their money's accounted for that. So this is a unique year coming out of like all the COVID funds and different resources and expenses that we had connected with that. So,
Madam Chair.
I think Ms. Gaston's was first.
Just to make sure I understand and that this is clear. So the budget that we've been going over, we have enough money in the bank to cover everything that we're going over.
yes.
So we're not going to be negative. We're not going to come up short. Nothing like that.
No, we should anticipate $6.9 million at the end of next year.
Okay. And I don't mean to speak for Ms. Zorb or Mr. Wilson or anything. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're not going to be negative, and that everything that we are approving is appropriate for each bucket, period.
Yes.
Okay.
So you see it says the total budget recommendation for 2025 is 11.3, and then the total remaining December 31st is 6.9.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
No.
I just,
I'm sorry, she's
oh,
right.
I'm sorry, Ms. Zorb.
Ms. Zorb is next.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the line 22, total remaining December 31st, 2025. If that's a total including levies, that's a very misleading number because a levy is a restricted fund. You can't just use that anywhere. So saying there's $7 million, that there might be 2 million of that that's restricted to redo a street.
Right.
So that's a very misleading number, and that's why I'm saying that these numbers here just are not telling a true story of what council needs to know.
They are. We've taken
not.
in consideration where the levies and that's why I specifically use the ARPA funds, because that money cannot be used any other way. The sign-on bonuses for police is accounting for, like I said, it's a small example of a larger picture. So that specific bucket of ARPA funds were given to us for the sole purpose of sign-on and bringing in new officers. We cannot use that any other way. But there are other funds that, for example, like Public Works, we will be using ARPA funds to fund their fund things for them that will relieve off of the general fund, so we can keep that money in the general fund and use specific ARPA funds to take care of their one-off. And there are things that will happen in this 2025 budget that will not happen in 2026. And there's no way to like show you all of that on paper. You have to just know that it's there. I'm telling you, you know for sure we receive ARPA funds. You know for sure that based on the encumberment document that you just passed, that we will be using those, absorbing those funds, which means there will be less lien on the general fund. And so the ending balance is $6.9 million.
Madam Mayor.
Really close to 7.
I was just going to make a point to Ms. Dukesteen actually just said it. We have to remember that for 3.5, 4 years, we've used some ARPA money in different funds that came in where we didn't have to touch the general fund for things that we would have had to do so in the past. So that alleviated spending from the general fund when you were paying salaries with ARPA money, which was money that was given to us. There are stipulations, you can only use it for certain things, which meant we did not have to touch the general fund, which meant, what does that mean? You're not using those dollars, so they stay there. And then I would like to add as well, if council recalls, some of you were new, may not recall, at the beginning of 2024, when Ms. Iki was here, if you recall, we went on a spending freeze where we weren't spending. So keep that in mind as well, that when we did that, we weren't spending, so that money wasn't coming out of the general fund.
We also have debt that we will relieve ourselves from in the midst of 2025. Now, we may pick up some, but then there is also, we only got awarded ARPA funds through 2023, and there are ARPA monies to be applied for and gained for 2024 also.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
So I want to speak for myself, and I'm going to say this loud and clear. I have a clear understanding of how the budget works and what's going on. I'm not lost. I'm not confused. It makes perfect sense of what the ending number is to me because it makes sense. You know, I'm sorry. Please do not question my intelligence when it comes to this. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I have reviewed this budget with everyone, and I haven't seen anything that makes me question the individuals that put this budget together. If the only thing that I could will say is that 2024 is different. It's going to be different from 2025 is going to be different from 2024, and with the new year ahead of us, I'm believing that the next budget for 2026 will reflect where the city is actually. I mean, we have made moves. You know, there's a lot of changes has been made, and I think it would be fair to give this city a full year to be able to see all of the things that they projected and all of the things that they didn't project it. And then, like I said, with the confidence, you know, come 2025, when we do this budget again, it'll be ready for 2026.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I do have a
Madam Mayor.
question. I understand, this is from Ms. Zorb, that you asked for a lot of documentation. And I guess for more clarity, I would like to know what number, what did you see that made you say that, I think your statement was that we don't have enough revenues and that we're not going to have a balanced budget. Just so if we have that information, then we can better answer your question or say, oh, well, this is where that discrepancy is coming in.
I appreciate you actually asking that and letting me go through this, because the numbers that I came up with shows that we're about 1.7 million over budgeted. So I appreciate that you asked me. So for the PD, there's a general fund PD, which is 2,323,000. The mayor's court comes out of the general fund. There's a fire department for 641,000 that comes from the general fund. Code enforcement, does that come from the general fund?
It wasn't fire.
It was at fire.
So it comes from the general fund. Recreation comes from the general fund. That's 108,000. Parks comes from the general fund. That's 172,000. There's an excess for over the senior center of 20,000. That's above the senior center levy. There's 325,000 in finance. There's 85,000 in income tax. And actually the Excel sheet that you sent out had, the total didn't add up for building and zoning. It's actually like 51.9 and not 51.5. It's the total is wrong. Then community environment, that's at 87,000. That's out of the general fund. Basic utility, we could probably take the basic utility out. No, we can't, because we can't take that out. So that's 310,000. Info and technology is 71,000. Miscellaneous is 267,000. Mayor and administration is 400,000, and the law director is 81,000. Legislation is 127,000. All of that adds up to we'll say 5.3 million. You just told us that Rita gives us 3.5 million. That's our general fund money, right?
That
And
is
then- and then
but there are things, like I said, there are things that you're not, if you look at it straight shoot like that, then you're always going to get that perspective.
If I'm not given revenue numbers, I only have this straight
And
shot,
I
as you put
gave
it, to look
But
at.
you didn't, in your list here, you didn't take into account the things that I specifically said there were revenues that we cannot account for, and we would have to give it a year to set itself. I also explained that there are one-time spinoffs built in this 2025 budget that will not happen in 2026, that will be covered by ARPA funds, which are also not in this revenue amount, but it is in the carryover from 24 to 25. And so we have resources that we haven't yet spent. We can't just, so think of this. If we have carryover that we haven't yet spent, and then we have one-time charges in 2025, some of that is going to come from that carryover. So we are okay when we deal with the carryover. If you see, we started the year at like $8 million. We're going to be at $7 million, which is about $500,000 off from what you said. And then we have some resources that we know are coming that we haven't yet solidified, but we know for sure are coming. So there's $1 million of your straight shooting the way you want to choose to look at it right there. And so I have to give you the outliers for you to be able to properly computate how we would look at the overall 2025 budget. You can't just say, well, this is the revenue and this is what we spend and they should match up, when we have one-time expenses in 2025 that are covered by one-time deposits from 2023. Plus, we have yet to receive 2024 deposits and yet to charge against those that will exhaust or be allow our general fund to stay plentiful. We have to just look at those as though they're not there yet. There's also some of the parks that come off of the general fund. Some of those resources will be exhausted by the rent that Ms. Clear just got. And then there's CDBG dollars that we'll be able to spend. I'm giving you all of those examples so that you are comforted in the idea that we are okay to go forward. We will have to spend out of the general fund, but some of those spaces where we lean on the excess that's in the carryover from last year will be replenished by the end of the year as well.
So, Ms. Dukestein, very respectfully, you understand that this is exactly why I have asked so many times for revenue.
But I gave
So
you
that
revenue.
I could, this is the first time I've seen 3.5 million for Rita. The very first time.
But it's in the doc. I actually went to the email that I sent you last night when I was looking at this. I went to the email that I sent you and pulled that number off of the email that I sent you from the tax budget. I mean, I don't know
Madam
why it's
Chair.
funny. I can show you.
Just a second, Mr. Wilson. Was your question answered, Ms. Orb?
And I would like to say the budget and versions of the budget, I started December the 2nd, and I have produced. Like, for example, we were told in a prior meeting that some of the things were taken care of that only got taken care of from this time. I have tried my hardest to accommodate everybody's question, everybody's meeting, everybody's everything. So I'm telling you, the money, the amount of revenue that I pulled off send you that number last night, I pulled it off from an email that I sent you. And I did that because you said what you want me to do is find it on my own. No, what I want you to do is look at the documents so you have a clear understanding, because sometimes providing more information and digging into that information helps guide your thought process further forward. It wasn't because I was trying to be lazy or whatever, but I said if you have this entire document, you can see it for yourself. You can see what we have accounted for. You can calculate it. And I was hoping that it would bring you comfort and not the feeling that I'm making you search for it for yourself. But when you ask for this again, I said, okay, well, I'll just pull it off of the numbers that you gave.
Ms. Dukestein, thank you for 21 days in this role and pulling all of this together, holding our hands and guiding us through every line and question. That hard work in that short amount of time is truly appreciated. And I think
Keep going.
Okay, so, again, I asked Ms. Zorb, was your question answered?
Roundaboutly, yes.
No, we are here to make sure before we have to vote that all questions are clear. So, roundaboutly, what is missing from her explanation? What question was not clear for you?
So it's basically putting us back to the trust, because she's expecting us to trust that there are enough ARPA funds to cover that 1.8 million, and there's enough other funds to cover that, or enough excess in the general fund, so we're going to diminish all of our excess. So there's a balancing act there that it's a tightrope that we're walking. And I want to point out that it's us. Mm-hmm. This is the group of people that are responsible for that. We're the ones that are going to vote on it. We're the ones that took the oath to uphold this.
Absolutely.
We are.
Yes, we are. That's why I'm trying to make sure all questions are answered in a clear, concise way that we all understand in order to move forward. Making sure I'm clear on the understanding. I think everyone down that way has stated they were clear. So we want to just make sure.
I haven't heard everyone down there say. I haven't heard anything from Mr. Davis at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to.
He's not on the.
Yeah, he's not on the committee. He didn't have any questions. He was comfortable with where we were. We're looking at you, Ms. Zorb. We're asking you, are you clear? You had the questions. You were the one that we didn't move forward with the budget in the council meeting to have the special meeting. So we're just trying to make sure you are comfortable, you feel heard, and your questions are answered.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Dukestein.
I am not asking you to blindly trust me. I'm telling you that we have an excess
It's in
of
writing.
carryover from the past.
Madam Chair.
We have to
Let her finish.
we have to be able to absorb some of that because we receive that money with an intended purpose to spend that money. For example, again, I'll go back to the police. We have not paid sign-on bonuses for ARPA monies that we did receive. That is somewhere in some of this calculation, although it's $30,000 and it may not be overtly seen in this budget, it's here. We were given that money to spend that money. We have to spend it the same way with some of the ARPA funds and the same way with the ones that will replenish. When we got those funds, it was never for the intent to pad our bank account. It was to have relief in some areas. And then maybe maneuver and put things in place to create more income. One of the things that we were able to do to create an income source was the impound lot. And there will be more of those things to come as we, together with council and administration, go forward to create spaces of revenue for our city. That's what we're challenged with. That's where we are. It's the reality. That reality was here before I came, and we will continue to have that as an issue. Cities all over are challenged with creating revenue to make sure that their budgets are sustainable. And we have to work hard at it in 2025. I hope we can do it as a team.
Absolutely.
But I would like to say, even if we did not receive any of those funds back, if none of the ARPA funds came through, our budget is still sustainable. But we do need to do some other things. We do need to get out there and apply for grants. It's not to say that we won't have the money at the end of 2025. It's to say we already know some of it's coming in, right? We've gotten started on some of those things. Not confirmed to the point where I would feel comfortable putting them in there, but we definitely have some things ahead. Like I said, ARPA funds, all we have to do is apply for them, and we should be receiving them. But I don't know how much that looks like, so I can't give you a proper estimate.
Right.
But it's only going to refuel our general fund. And while we're refueling our general fund, my strategy, your strategy, our strategy together should be coming up with ways to make sure that we become income bearing in some other spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to talk about that in coming 2025.
Okay. I'd like to wrap this up at 11:50 to give us a 10-minute break before we move into official council meeting. Everyone's questions have been answered. Everyone's minds are clear. I'm gonna call y'all each by name. Ms. Underwood, are you clear?
Yes, I'm clear.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Yes, generally. Now, one question asking going forward, in the name of in the name of requiring a balanced budget now, because when I first got this, so this is one of those, I'm just making sure that I'm not lost. So where that initial number from the tax budget that we passed, where that's at 9.9 million, so that's what I thought that's where we would be aiming from. Which is why I was like, I'm comfortable going forward, but I'm comfortable for this year, but going forward, should I be looking at that tax budget when it comes in as saying, okay, that's what the expenditures for the next year should be going forward?
I think that's a really good question. I think that it depends on ARPA funds and how we navigate forward to some anticipated dollars. We would definitely be shrinking back to accommodate different revenues that come in for 2025, anticipated and unanticipated declines and increases. And that's why we have to carefully watch this next year. We got to step really diligently in this next 2025 year, but I'm confident that we can do that.
Okay.
But I want to remind you that we are required to spend some of the money that we have sitting. We don't have a choice, or we have to give the money back.
Right.
So it was never to have this amount sitting in the general fund that we just sat on. We are light years away from where we came. When I came, it was like barely $1 million. Now we're at $7 million. And so, I mean, we're at, our beginning balance is $15 million at the beginning of this year. And so by the end, anticipated at the end of 2025, we'll be at very close to $7 million. We're still gaining footage. You all, we definitely are.
Mr. Wilson?
I'm super comfortable.
Ms. Alexander?
Yes, I'm comfortable, but I would like to say that I appreciate the questions that everyone has asked. Ms. Zorb, I appreciate your due diligence, how you dig down deep. You know, we may not always agree, but I think questioning things brings clarity to everyone. I've learned some things from the questions that you've asked that I'm like, okay, I thought it was this, but she asked this question. Ms. Dukes-Dean brought clarity, but I want to say I appreciate all the questions. I know we all have a passion for this, and I appreciate that you don't take this lightly. I don't think any of us take it lightly, but I appreciate the drill down that you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ms. Gaston?
Took the words right out of my mouth. It is our job to look at every line item and to ask the questions so that we are clear. And I do appreciate Ms. Zorb going through all of this and making sure things are clear. I appreciate you 1,000% meeting, you know, during council, outside of council, to make sure that things are understood so that we have the confidence. Funds are coming in, everything will be just fine. So I believe that I am clear on what we are going to vote on today.
Awesome. Ms. Zorb?
Yeah, good.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Dukes-Dean.
we didn't get to go into, it is on this list in terms of Ms. Zorb's questions about the cleanup ordinance. I believe the documents that are provided for you, I know Ms. Gaston privately has some questions for me, and I provided what I believe will be clarity for her without knowing exactly. She kind of briefly told me what her concerns were in the meeting. If you want to use that discussion time when we're approving the cleanup ordinance to talk about that, I'm more than happy to come back. I didn't know how you were going to handle that since there were only a few questions on here. I did provide documents. You in the documents, I'm sorry, I didn't, Ms. Chichester provided you with documents. You will see line by line where the numbers match, the lines underneath, where the negative numbers are, how much negative to the cleanup. So it's exactly the same document that you had before, but just a little bit more detail so that you can provide that clarity. And so I'm here to give you the support you need to feel comfortable passing. I don't mind the questions. I just want to make sure that in the spirit of the questions, it's for clarity and not, I got you. If you're clear, if you want to regain clarity, I'm here for that. But I'm not trying to be, I'm new at this. Ms. Anderson is new. Even we're here to give you what you need. And that's what we're trying to do. So that's that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I don't know if you want to use the questions that Ms. Zorb has here on the her email, because we kind of skipped over the cleanup ordinance stuff to kind of talk about the cleanup ordinance. If you want to use that to go into the next meeting, the council meeting, official council meeting, and then we can talk about it in discussion if you have any questions.
whatever. You guys have any questions? Did y'all look at it? Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Ms. Zorb, do you have any questions on the cleanup ordinance?
I'm wondering if it's changed again.
It has not changed. What I did do, and if you want to just talk to me individually, I can do that as well. I want to kind of address everyone because everyone might have questions, but if you look at the documents that I gave you, and I have an extra over here if you want, you can see that the negatives match what is the negative in the specific accounts and what lines are negative. What she had done before was giving you a fund balance where the fund balances were negative. I requested that she give it to us line by line by line. So again, we can use these questions on here to kind of look at those documents, or I'll talk about it in discussion when you approve or, going through the readings. We can use the discussion time to talk about it.
You want time to review it? That way we can adjourn the committee meeting and then take a break, and then in discussion in the council, we can discuss it. That sounds fair, Ms. Ort? All right. This will conclude the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, and we will reconvene at, is it noon?
Yep.
For the special council meeting. Thank you.